Welcome back to another Avery Adventures podcast. Avery Adventures is powered by Mountain Ops. You can get 20% off at checkout by using the code FATKID at Avery Adventures at mountainop.com. Great people, great products. Go check it out. On this podcast today, we have the one and only Kurt Racicot from Stone Glacier. He's actually never been on a podcast, so was damn glad that he said, "Yep, I'll come on yours." And he lays it out and puts down some good information, and I'm pretty sure you guys will enjoy this. Me and Tanya are kind of way behind on podcasts, and we need to actually put out a question and answer podcast because we get so many questions, which we love, and we need to address them. One of the questions that I wanted to kind of throw out here real quick before we start is, I've gotten a few of these, is who the hell are you to talk about gear? You know, basically in a nutshell, why are you an expert on gear? And I guess the answer to that question is, I hate the word expert. All I rely off is my experiences. For those of you guys that don't know, I co-own rockslide.com. And in my opinion, it's probably the biggest gear focused hunting site on the web. And I've owned that since 2012. And I probably read more information on gear than 95% of the people out there. I also, in the last 5 years, I've hunted since I was 12, but in the last 5 years, I've spent well over a year's worth of time hunting over those last 4 and 5 years. So I also get out and, try the products out, and I love talking gear. So that's a little bit of where I come from that side. But I am not an expert. You'll never hear me claim to be an expert on stuff I don't know shit about. And even when the stuff I do know a lot about, I still ask people's opinions in the industry on what they think about it, because I don't think you can ever stop learning, whether it's gear or anything else in hunting. So anyways, let's get to Kurt's podcast, and thanks for listening. Over here in Bozeman, I don't know what's in the water in Bozeman, but I think there's a lot of great companies and outdoorsmen over here in Bozeman. We're over in the basement with Kurt Racicot.
Racicot, there you
Racicot.
go. Yeah.
I don't know why I can't say that last name, but it sounds pretty simple, but it's not.
It's spelling.
Right. Kurt's the only... Spelling's not my strong suit. Kurt is the owner of Stone Glacier packs. If you follow Rockslide, you've seen that he came out of nowhere in 2012 and now is one of the leading pack designers, builders in the industry. Kurt, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We came over to Bozeman yesterday. Kurt was up riding his bike. Want to tell us a little bit about that bike?
Yeah, it's a KTM 300 with a timber sled package on it.
Yeah, and I, Darren Cooper, he's big into those bikes, and he just loves to ride them. And I think you and him are the only two people that I know that ride them.
Well, I'm pretty new to the sport, but yeah, it's pretty addictive.
It seems like it's one of those kind of deals where it's either a sled or that, and those guys that ride those, like Darren said, I'll never ride a sled again.
I've heard that from a lot of guys. I can see how people get into it. Huh. You just access different, a lot of different country, different ways than you do on a sled. Gotcha. So already looking forward to the next winter.
Seems like you have a few more weeks of this one.
Yeah, it's just getting to the snow now.
Yeah, for sure. So Bozeman, Montana. How did you end up in Bozeman, Montana?
Well, I grew up outside of Missoula and born and raised in Montana, and then went to college a couple of years at the U of M, and then transferred over to MSU and finished up my degree here at MSU. And then moved to Alaska. I lived in Alaska for almost 13 years. And after my wife and I got married and we decided that we were going to start a family, we wanted to be closer to our family. My family is still in Montana, and her sister had moved to Montana. So I said, well, let's go check out Bozeman. I've always loved it. It was a great spot. And we came down here, and she fell in love with it, and we've been here ever since.
Obviously, there was a little iteration where you were in Alaska at some point?
Yeah. Yep. I was, I moved up there right out of college, and I was up there for almost 13 years.
Is that where you found the love for the Dall sheep, if you're watching the video?
Yes, definitely. Once again, another pretty addictive sport or, adventure to be involved with. And it wasn't the primary reason I moved up there. I just wanted to, experience Alaska, love to hunt, love to fish. And then it just kind of seemed the natural progression. You moved on up through the different types of hunts, and sheep was at the pinnacle up there. And as soon as you got a taste of it, you just wanted to do it again.
So you grew up deer, elk, the Montana guy.
Yep.
All the hunts that Montana offers. Then you went up there, and that's a whole different playing field for animals.
It is. And it's a huge learning curve. It was, I think in my first 5 or 6 years of sheep hunting up there, I only saw one legal ram.
Really?
Yeah. And then, once you kind of get your program dialed in and you learn more about it, you learn where to go, your success starts to go up a little bit. But it's the school of hard knocks. If you go up there and just try to figure it out yourself, there's a learning curve.
How many Dow sheep have you shot?
6.
He turned around and looked. He had to make sure he didn't want to sneak one in on us.
All in Alaska?
Yeah. Yep.
So dumb question. Is that a draw tag, or is that over the counter? How does that work?
They have both. They have both up there. All of these were just, if you're a resident, you get a tag, just like in Montana or Idaho where you get your elk and deer tag. It's just an over-the-counter. And then they do have several draw units up there as well. Gotcha. I wasn't fortunate enough to draw one when I was up there, but have several friends who have since.
Mm-hmm. And how did those draw units compare? Were they to the ones that you were hunting?
There are really big rams taken out of the state, statewide. And the draw units have seemed to kind of cycle a little bit. It depends on which draw unit. Mm-hmm. Some of them, there's just a higher number of, in my opinion, that there's a higher number of legal sheep. And then there are some units that they're just, some real twisters in there. And so it just kind of depends on what kind of experience I think you want. And some of it's pretty tough to access.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine.
I've never hunted sheep in my life. Is it as physical as people claim it is?
Yeah, I think it can be anything. You look at some of the spots in Montana. In my opinion, it's hard to compare, say, a breaks hunt to a bear tooth sheep hunt. Mm-hmm. They're just completely different country, and it can be the same thing in Alaska. It depends on the range that you're in, and the access getting in there, and is there glacial travel, is it water? There's just all of these different factors that go into it.
I got to ask you, that was before Stone Glacier. What packs were you using at that point in time?
I used a little bit of everything. I started out with internals. There weren't a lot of externals at that time, or even the external hybrids that you could use where you could get the cubic inches and still be less than 8 or 10 pounds. And then, I was kind of a slender guy, so the big frame pack was pretty cumbersome, especially, you're going through alders. So, Arc'teryx, I had some North Face that I did some modifications to. Those were the ones that, before I started tinkering and building my own stuff, that was what I used mostly.
Is that where the design started spooling up in your mind of what you needed and what you didn't need?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where it started because, when you're hiking by yourself with 100+ pounds on your back for a couple of days, you start thinking of easier ways to do it. And, of how can this be more comfortable? There's got to be a better way.
I think that's probably that 100+ pounds is where the lightweight side of Stone Glacier came from.
It is. That's exactly where it was at is, I knew my own physical capabilities and, throwing 130 or 150 pounds on my back and going for that amount of time, it just crushes you. And I know that there's a lot of guys that can do it, but in technical country, it's a tough deal. So I was really trying to get the pack weight, sheep, horns, cap, skull, all my gear, where I could make one trip out. Because, effectively that doubled your range, if you didn't have to make two trips. And so I was always shooting for that 110 to 115 pound range with everything, full boned out sheep. And in order to do that, just had to go through my entire gear list. And that's really how I ended up with the design is the last thing that I had on my list was the backpack. I'd gone through everything else. And, if I didn't use it 2 years in a row, it never went back in my pack. It was that kind of, you slowly start to whittle it down to the point where okay, the only other place I can start to save some weight is with the pack. And so I started with different packs that were out there on the market, made some modifications, and kind of organically ended up with an entirely separate design. Really wasn't an intention, to be in that spot, but that was really kind of how the design was born.
What was your average loadout going out to hunt for? Do you know? From the stuff that I weighed, they would be right in that 110, 112 to 117 pound range. Really? How much was your starting, just your starting kit for that week-long hunt or 4-day hunt or whatever?
I think it's a little bit tough to say because there were so many factors that went into it. Depending where I was going into, if you knew that it was 2 days in and you could cover all the country that you were going to go in. I mean, a lot of the places were one way in, one way out. And so you already knew, your time frame that you'd be in there. It wasn't like, oh, I have 2 extra days, so I'll just bump up over the ridge. No, you can't.
Right.
And so maybe you take 7 days of food on this one, or you're going to go 5 days, go this direction. If you don't find anything, come back, resupply at the strip and go 5 days the other way. So it's tough to say the exact starting weight. I tried to stick, going off of memory here, in that 35-pound range of your hardcore gear, and that doesn't include your rifle and doesn't include water. But typically it would have everything else. And I went very minimal on optics and, so I'd say right in that 35-pound range.
Did you have any catastrophic gear failures in that time frame that you can think of?
Fortunately, nothing that I can think of. A few things you wouldn't think it's that catastrophic, but it turns out to be, is you go through your extra pair of shoelaces.
Really?
Yeah. If you break multiple pairs of shoelaces and you can't get those were the little things that I learned going through it.
I thought about that.
Yeah, I didn't have anything major like a pack failure or rifle failure. I was real fortunate in that.
Were all of these hunts solo, pretty much?
Not all of them. A majority. Yeah, a majority of them.
Yeah, because anytime I love hunting by myself, and I think it just adds to the adventure. And some people don't, so that's fine.
Yep.
It's always interesting to ask people if solo or not, and some guys will never hunt solo. Hell, some guys are still scared of the dark.
You're talking to one. No.
Well, if you're out there killing these in the middle of nowhere.
He's being all judgy, isn't he?
Well, if you're out there killing these in the middle of nowhere, you have to be hard-pressed to be scared of the dark.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's why your lasket stays light for so long.
That's it. See, that's what it's set. Go early.
So that got your wheels spinning. Can you tell us about when you came back to the States and you actually started trying to develop a few products or give designs to companies and how that went and progressed to saying, screw it, I'm going to build my own?
Yeah, so I had some ideas and some designs that I had been using, and I wouldn't say that it was a presentation to other companies, but definitely kind of had my feelers out there to see if somebody would be interested in, and had kind of got to the point where everybody had their own products out there, and they were going their direction, and so it just made the most sense that if I wanted to bring the product to market, I was going to have to do it myself, and which in hindsight is a blessing. If somebody if you would have partnered with somebody or somebody would have picked it up, it'd be a vastly different spot we'd be in right now.
How many years were they like, oh, damn, it's Kurt again. He wants us to do something. How many years was that, did it take to get to where I say, I'm building my own?
Well, it would be about 4. I had my first final design that I hunted with in 2008. And at that point, I didn't want to start a company. I didn't have any intentions of it. I loved the gear. I loved building. I loved the design type of stuff. So I just wanted to be involved somehow. And I wasn't looking at it for a job or, anything in that respect. So, but once I had that design, I had friends that were interested in it. And so I had built, a few different designs for friends. And one day I was cruising down the road with one of my buddies, and he said, "You ought to just try to make a short run of them." And, after everything like you had talked about with, there really wasn't any interest from other companies to take it on or to be intricately involved in that realm. Thought, why not?
Absolutely. What year was, well, you showed us the Model T. What year was that designed?
That one would have been probably 2010. Yeah, 2010. So my first design was in 2008. Started the company, opened the doors in August of 2012.
Really? Okay, so Rockslide started in March of 2012, so that makes sense.
Yep.
And then when you first did that limited run, was it like, I'm just going to give them to friends? Did you sell them, or did you say, I hope these sell? Or how did that all...
No. Yeah, I had kind of decided that, okay, I'm willing to take X amount out of my family savings. I'm going to produce X number of packs, and if they sell, I'll roll that back into it. But this is all that I'm ever investing. And it was a minimal amount. It wasn't, I'm not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so it started very slow. And I sold those 60, and I was fortunate enough that the first 60 that I had, I sold within, weeks.
Wow.
Rolled that right back in.
Right.
And, then it just kept building, and everything, I just kept rolling it back in each time.
Was it kind of a surreal moment thinking these people are buying my pack?
It was surreal, and it was kind of nerve wracking because while I had faith in it, the other side of it is that you have so much personal investment, because I had spent so much time designing what I thought was a great pack for myself. Now I'm putting it out there to be judged by other people, which when I had so much time in it, when somebody says, that pack's a piece, that hurts. Like,
that's your baby.
You have no idea how much time I spent on that.
That's how we feel about our podcast.
That's your baby.
I get it.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Exactly. So, on a personal level, not even the monetary level, I think that I was more nervous about that, putting something out there, a big part of yourself, and then having to wait to see, what you get back in return. But fortunately, had good reviews and lots of interest. People liked the weight, and I tried to do my best to communicate what it's used for. Like it's a specific piece of gear. I didn't make a everyday pack that you're going to go haul moose quarters and that's all you're going to do with it. Like it has a specific purpose.
Yeah, I think you came along and hit a niche like perfectly, because everybody, 2010, 2011, it seemed when Rockslide started 2012, it was the niche of the ultimate lightweight pack. And you already had those wheels spinning long before that. So I think you hit it perfect timing, and your design reflects lightweight from the get-go.
Yeah.
Was that, obviously that was the whole sheep hunting experience that was pretty driving that?
Yeah, it was. It was just trying to whittle everything down to carry the least amount of weight on your back. And not necessarily in it, obviously it's nice to not carry any extra weight while you're hunting, but 5 or 10 pounds while you're hunting, it's no big deal. But an extra 10 pounds when you're already at your max of 110 pounds, I found a huge difference between a 110 pound load and a 120 pound load. And that's what I was trying to get to, is to still have the function that you needed and, but be able to get the game out.
Just for the audience's viewpoint, what's the most you've ever packed out? One load?
I weighed pack out when I hunted the Beartooths, and it was 137 or 139 pounds. But that was rifle. That was like the whole kit and caboodle. And that was by far the heaviest load. I try not to go over 100 pounds anymore. With elk hunting, there's really no reason to. You're multiple trips either way. It was a necessity thing out of the sheep hunting.
How much do you weigh? Not to get personal, but
that's okay. 178.
So you had 3/4 of your body weight on your back.
That's what I was going to say. Don't you weigh about 137 pounds?
Oh, dude, what are you, 6'2", 6'? What else are you?
6'4".
6'4". that brings me another question. Do you have to be tall and lanky to be a good sheep hunter?
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely
He's
not.
just being nice.
So you're
Yeah,
saying
you
a
do.
5'8" short fat guy like me can be a good sheep hunter?
A hammer. A hammer.
You heard it from Kurt. He's killed all these sheep, and I could be a hammer.
Yep.
Don't give him these ideas.
So 134 pound, you weigh $170, so that is 3/4 of your weight. So
That's crazy.
It's a slow process, but
Right.
you know, I'm
It's a
not going
struggle.
to say, I'm not going to say that you get under the pack and hike for an hour straight, because that's not the way it worked for me. It was just,
yeah,
you know, necessity. You got to keep moving. You're in grizzly country. You can't leave half the sheep laying there. It's, you know.
I always laugh. I don't laugh. I just kind of give it a second look when people hit that 3-digit mark. And I started actually packing a scale because I wanted to know the numbers that people had, you know, and it's everybody thinks they have more on their back than they do. And I have I'm not going to keep bringing them up, but we shot 2 elk together. We hiked them out, and he's like, "Man, I got to have 100 pounds on my back." We weighed it, and it was 68. So I like to have that scale, and I like to keep myself honest because I don't like to lie to people. That I packed out 125 pounds. So it's great to see that you're actually. There's no real great pack. Once you hit that 3-digit mark, no pack is going to feel good.
I haven't found that. We're just not designed to carry that much weight.
Right.
It's and then you think about the square inches. The square inches that the belt and the shoulder straps make contact, that you have to support all of that weight. And it's very minimal. You know, I mean, it's only a couple inches as it goes over the top of your shoulders if you choose to put weight on your shoulders, and then, you know, minimal square inches on the hip belt. So it's tough to get it comfortable.
Oh, I absolutely agree. One of the things I've noticed with your packs from your upgrades each year, or not, I wouldn't say upgrades, but each evolution of your pack is I'm a belt guy. If I'm a little portly, so if the belt don't cinch down, it starts to slide down.
Yeah. So
I always check the belts first, and the one thing I've noticed is each time your belt, you've gotten better and better with your belts, and your new X curve. That was called X curve frame the belt is vastly improved from when it started to me.
Yep. No, and we've heard that, and you know, and that's what we try to listen to is the feedback. You know, it's like boots. You're trying to fit so many different body shapes, hip placements. That having as much adjustment as you can is going to be advantageous. So that's what I tried to do with this one, with the new X curve belt, is add more adjustments so that you can change the pressure points on the outside of the belt. You can change how much pressure goes directly back to the frame opposed to how much you're pulling through the belt or through the webbing. And then, of course, having that little bit of extra curve, I think, in the bottom portion of the lumbar pad also helps with the amount of contact. You know, kind of back to that same thing where we're talking about square inches. You have to transfer all of this weight that you're carrying in a vertical sense to horizontal, because it's not like it's being placed on. It's friction around your hips where you're cinching it down. It's not like you're placing it all on your shoulders.
Right.
So you need to have all that contact. And that's really what we're trying to do.
One of the biggest things I see brought up about packs, belts, anything is the lumbar pad. Is it just like a boot thing where some people really need a big fat lumbar pad and some people don't? Is it just a body type thing, or is it just they're adjusted it wrong, or how does that work?
I think everybody's a little bit different in their preference. I would equate it to almost like an arch in a boot. You know, some people prefer a much larger arch going through there. Everybody's foot shaped a little bit different. Same thing with your lower lumbar, because it's providing much the same support, you know, as an arch. You know, it's kind of a little bit of a concave swell in your back. You're trying to just, you know, mate as much of the surface up to it as you can. So the more custom you can make the fit, you know, the more surface area you're going to have.
I liked how your new frame is just simplistic. There's no there's no gadgets. It's easy to adjust, quick to adjust. It's just simplistic from the word go. And it seems like your whole line is, you know, minimal, get where you got to get going, throw your shit in the pack and let's roll.
Yeah. Well, I'm a pretty simple guy, so I have to have something like that.
I try to say that I'm not simple, but I'm damn simple myself.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it.
You never know when somebody else is going to have to wear your pack, so it's nice that can be adjusted on the fly pretty quick. Ryan had to use my pack to pack out a bear last year, and it was comical to watch because we were it was getting dark fast, so we had to, make all these adjustments on it pretty quick. And
I weighed that one too. It was only just under a mile, but it was a 198-pound bear gutted, and it sucked.
I can't imagine.
It was hilarious though.
It was bad, but the thing that any pack is, the biggest thing with any of these packs that are going to go multi-day is they can't break.
Yeah.
And one thing I can say, I hear pack talk, I hear hunting talk, I hear pretty hardcore hunters every day, and I've never heard of a failure from Stone Glacier. Not one.
No, knock on wood, we still have yet to have anything happen to anybody in the field where the pack wasn't functional. I mean, things happen.
Absolutely.
There are four-wheelers, there are horses. There's a lot of stuff that you can break, but have not run into that yet. So I hope we'll keep with that.
It seems like your pack is going to be bulletproof. I don't think there's going to be too many issues with that thing. One of the questions from one of our guys is, where did the R3 240 panel come from a company that was minimalist to tactical?
Well, as it turns out, there's a lot of tactical people out there that are minimalist too. And we had several groups of guys that had been using our packs in a military role, but they had their own ideas, and I don't have any military background and very limited tactical knowledge. So I just said to them, tell me what you want. I can make it. If you give me good, clear ideas, we can make something that will work for you. And that's really where it came from.
I mean, is it something that, and I don't have any clue because I was in the military, but I'm not tactical at all. So does it have applications outside? Are you having people buy it that are not military, or is it like a predator, hunting predators, or?
We haven't. It's tough to say what people are using it for.
Yeah, I bet.
Because as something sells, if you don't have that one-on-one personal interaction and get to ask that question,
right?
It's definitely a niche item that only fit for certain applications.
Some zombie guy, some kid living in his mom's basement, waiting for the apocalypse.
That could be.
He needs a load out of 240 rounds.
Yeah, it's our prepper pack.
That's a good way to sell it. The survivalist prepper pack. And the R3, that pack was obviously designed based around that panel, or vice versa?
Actually, the panel was afterwards.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. So kind of in the same respect, had more of a work or duty type pack because guys were using our hunting platform and saying, we like these features, but we could really use these added features. And so I just kind of brought all those together over the course of a couple of years. And once I had a design dialed in that could kind of float back and forth, and it works equally as well in hunting or backpacking, but, primarily in the service realm, and, just tried to fill that niche. And it's kind of you don't hear a lot about it. There don't seem to be as, it's kind of that silent product that's out there for us right now.
I don't know. I saw your ad had a lot of links going to it, so I don't know how silent it is.
I shouldn't say silent, but in the respect of all of the, maybe that's because I'm more in the hunting side, so I don't see it as much.
I watched the kind of the thread blow up on that, and so obviously it's not for some people, but the people that it's for, they dug it big time.
Yeah, that's what we found, and once again, I think that the reason that is because we had those people give the feedback. Those guys give the feedback and say, this is what we really need, or this is what we'd like added to your platform that you have right now.
It's awesome to see you're taking that feedback and producing a product. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that's
listening
one of
to your customers. What?
That's one of the funnest parts. So, it's like a challenge.
So if you're going out on a hunt, what pack are you taking?
Oh,
I know you can pick any of them, but what do you use the most?
Yeah, it really kind of depends. So this year, during archery season, I carried a Sky Archer, and just because it's easier, you have access to the spotting scope when you have the bow strapped on the back. If we have a new pack that we have a prototype for, I like to use that at least a couple of weeks. We had most of our new stuff out being tested by other guys this year. And then I went back. The first pack I designed was the Solo 3300, and I used it again this year. All rifle season. Yeah. Throw a lid on it. When it gets late season, you have to carry a couple extra layers. But beyond that, I designed that pack cubic inches around my specific gear list. This is the number of cubic inches that I have. This is how much food I want to carry. And it was a pretty dialed program for me. So I use that one a majority of the time.
What is your gear list? What is in your bag when you go out?
I
For like like archery.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty standard gear list that most everybody else would use. So right now, I've always used a Hillberg Solo tent. I know that there are lighter things out there, but I've been in some situations with that I have been so impressed with it, and just can't leave it behind. It's kind of like your last line of defense,
Right.
And so, and then the appropriate sleeping bag for the time of the year, whether it be, 30, 15, or 0, or the 3 that I have. And, from there, it kind of depends on the hunt and the terrain. Do you carry big glass? Do you need a tripod? And then, your days of food. But it's a pretty standard list. I think it would just be more specific.
But people struggle with that. That is one of the questions that gets asked a lot is, what are you guys carrying? Because people get so, overwhelmed with forgetting something that they think they'd need. So they're always asking, what are you carrying? What did you find that you didn't need? What did you find that you did need? And obviously everything is situational depending on what you're hunting and what season and where. But, it's funny to me that that's one of the questions that we get asked a lot on the rock slide is gear lists. Yeah.
And it depends on what you classify as need. Do you need camp shoes? Well,
a fifth of whiskey, that's a need.
Yeah, some people need camp shoes. I don't, or just choose not to carry them. I think it does come down to personal preference. Mm-hmm. What you're willing to leave behind is really what it comes down to. But I certainly never skimp on anything safety related. I make sure I have my communications. Mm-hmm. Whether it be a sat phone or, I carry an inReach. Mm-hmm. With a 3 and 5 year old, I want to make sure that I'm making the right decisions out there.
Yeah.
And, of course, your emergency kit and, your correct layers, just be able to stay warm and dry and keep moving. But beyond that, all the little trinket stuff that comes and goes out of my pack, probably just like everybody else.
It seems like everybody wants to know what's in first aid kits. What do you carry in your first aid kit?
It's pretty minimal.
You seem like everything is minimal.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not skilled enough to, carrying anything where.
Right.
But yeah, I think just your standard, anything to deal with a cut, some super glue. Some bandages, some antiseptic, just some of those more regular things that you'd get in where you'd want to keep an infection down if you ever did get cut or had something like that. But as far as high level things, I don't carry anything like that. I don't have the training to use it. I should probably just get myself to some medical attention before I do something.
That's probably why I got the inReach. That's what I have one for.
Yeah.
Help me. I can't help myself.
That's it.
Was it Larry Bartlett that said his first aid kit consists of like duct tape, weed, and then like one Band-Aid or something?
Yep,
and if he can't take care of what he has going on with that, then he shouldn't be up there and is going to die.
Should have to call for an evac.
Right.
I could see that.
And it's like, well, it kind of put things in perspective for, I think, a lot of people going, well, maybe I do carry too much stuff in the first aid kit.
That's actually what I was getting at, because I knew that Kurt would not have a lot, and I don't think there's only so much you can do in the field, and if it's, you're not going to do any open heart surgery.
No.
Please don't try.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's good stuff. We had a few questions that I want to hit on your unlimited sheep tag, and people asking, it has to be one of the hardest hunts. And even though it's in the lower 48, where those sheep are at, how hard those sheep are to find. Can you take us a little bit how your mindset went through hunting that bighorn?
Yeah. Once again, that was a big learning curve the first year I went in there, I didn't turn up anything. And it's a humbling experience when you go cover a ton of miles, and it takes a lot of time.
How many days was that for you? I think you're in there.
Oh, I probably that season probably had 15 or 18 days in
with no spotting. Did you find any rams at all?
No.
Wow.
No, I didn't. Nope.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, but it's a pretty common. That's a pretty common story. There are guys who get dialed in on a band of rams, or a ram or a couple of rams, and know they're in a general area, and are fortunate enough to see them more than once in a season, even if they don't get a shot. But generally speaking, it's slim, and it's big country, and there's a lot of access in there. Obviously it's wilderness, so there are long approaches to make it to sheep country. A lot of those rams spend a lot of time in the timber, which makes it even tougher. So, and there's a lot of timber in there, so where you might find them in the summer isn't necessarily where you're going to find them come September 10th, 15th, when you're going to be in there. So I think that's what makes it a great hunt, is it's no slam dunk. You hear of many guys hunting it for seasons without ever having an opportunity to ram, and I don't know. I think that's why it makes it a special hunt.
Can you tell us a little bit how it went down with this guy?
Yeah, it was. I was on my 10th day in there, and had not turned up a ram, and had spent 2 days in the drainage that I found him in. I had spent, a day and a half in that drainage, glassing from all different angles. Moved over another drainage, glassed back, and found him right where I was glassing.
Exactly where you're glassing from?
Exactly. Well, not where I was glassing from, but exactly where I was glassing into.
Okay.
And I probably had 6-8 hours in there, nothing but behind the spotting scope.
What elevation, just to give everybody what elevation is this at you're hunting at?
It's anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 feet.
Pretty and rugged as hell.
Yeah, it's rugged.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so I spotted him right at dark, and then broke camp a couple hours before light, and made it back to my camp the day before, which is where I could glass him from. And then turned him up again that morning and watched him until he bedded. And he bedded out on this point where I knew the sun was going to come back around and be right on him in his bed. So I kind of hung tight, and sure enough, came around. Sun hit him, and then he moved back up into the timber and dug another bed. And then it took me until 3:00 that afternoon to get over there, and I found his bed, but I couldn't turn him up. And so I just kept working up and down the spine of this ridge with my spotting scope. And it was probably about 6:00 that night. I finally found him bedded behind this big pine tree up there, and had one shot, and that was it.
How far? What caliber?
It was 410 yards, and it was Weatherby 378.
A Weatherby 378?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's all I had.
Shit,
that's all I hunted with.
So you killed him. How? I bet it knocked him down.
Yeah, I shot him in the eye, so it was over pretty quick. That wasn't intentional. I mean, he was bedded. He was bedded facing toward, or quartered towards me. So I had a very good kill area shot. He just happened to move his head down as I shot.
Do you hunt everything with 378?
No, I rebarreled it to a 3378 now. Huh. But yeah, it was from Alaska. I didn't.
No, I didn't
have a ton of money.
I did not expect you to say a 378 Weatherby. I expected you to say 30-06 270.
Yeah, no.
And you hit it, just the wind drift hit him in the eye?
Well, no, it was going right into the brisket. He just happened to move his head down during the shot, so it just kind of went through.
How was the pack out on that bad boy?
It was long. That was the heaviest load that I've carried. The fortunate thing about that country is that you can usually pick up some trails here and there. It's not like
elk trails and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's not like packing out of the alders in Alaska, which throws a whole nother realm into it. But it took me 2 days to get out, and a little under 2 days.
How much do you think that was? Over 100-pounder?
That was the one that was like 136.
Oh, that was wow.
Yeah,
that's misery. How'd the shoulders and butt and back and hips feel on that?
Yeah, I was a little sore the next day.
Just a little.
Yeah, a little tight.
Do you see many people up there while you're hunting?
Yeah, there's a fair, especially if you spend a lot of time glassing, because it depends on where you're at. But the whole wilderness. Don't take my word for it because I haven't looked at the books, or at the regulations lately. But a lot of that opens up for early rifle season for deer and elk.
Oh, okay.
And so you'll see a bit of traffic there. There's, depending on where you're at, there, 5 to 25 goat tags. And typically a lot of guys are hunting that earlier because it's tough to access late.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a few people poking around.
People are going to ask me if I don't ask you, or people are going to yell at me if I don't ask you. What optics were you using?
At the time, I was using for the spotting scope, I had a Leica. It was the 80. And then for binoculars, I had, which ones were they? Oh, they were the Zeiss. And I don't remember exactly.
HTs or
VT
or
they were their 12 powers.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you don't mess around.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the long distance in there.
Right. Then you just smacked him in the eye with the 378.
Yeah. That wasn't necessarily planned. It was it was a poor movement on his part.
Exactly. Yeah, I ain't knocking the shot. It's just that 378 just throws me off. All right. So what can you tell us about going into 2018, 2019? Where is Stone Glacier going?
Well, I think we have a lot of things going on as far as products. Looking at, I'm always testing. I'm always playing around with different designs. We don't have a specific plan right now as far as huge on the horizon. I think our biggest focus right now is to provide good customer service and a good product and support the products that we have out there, and allow those products to build the business, especially with our new frame. That's a big part of a company. It's like the chassis of a car,
right?
And so
Absolutely.
that's where our primary focus is going to be right now.
I had to ask because 2 people asked, can they buy the frame and know you're not going to build one in 2018?
Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing to keep in mind is we've been in business since 2012, and this was the first major change we've made to our frame design. So, it was pretty solid when we came in. We've made little tweaks here or there, and very calculated about coming out with something new, and want to make sure that it's supported with our other products that we have before. So, yeah, I think it would be safe to say we won't be making any huge changes in the near future.
All right, you heard it from Kurt, so don't yell at me, yell at him. The one thing I do like, you went from one guy, now there's 4 of you.
Yep.
And it seems to me the 4 guys, you didn't go out and hire a guy, 18-year-old high school kid. You have 4 knowledgeable guys. So if you talk to any of you about your pack, they're knowledgeable. They've been in the field. They know what it means to be a backpack hunter. I think that's really a special kind of thing, because a lot of times, you go down to Cabela's, or you talk to somebody on the phone, and they ain't used the stuff. They haven't even seen the stuff, let alone got blood on it.
Yeah.
So the thing I like about your company is you have 4 knowledgeable guys about the product.
Yeah, we're really lucky to have that knowledge, and all those guys have got that knowledge through the School of Hard Knocks, just like all the rest of us, which is cool because it brings a lot of insight to the product as well. So when guys are having specific questions or specific uses for the product, it's not like, I think this will work, just try this, let me know how it does. It's like, well, I have used this in this particular application, and I think that this will work well for you. So that really helps. And they're very passionate about hunting and You know, I mean, there's hunting podcasts on at the shop all day long, and they live, eat, and breathe it. So that helps. You just can't replace passion like that.
How many days do you spend? I know that you mentioned you use them and you test them out when you're on your own hunting trips. How many days would you say typically you spend? What's your hunting season like? Is it pretty extensive, or do you work so much you don't get to, like typical business owners, you don't get to get out as much as you would like?
And into that, how many days do you spend testing the product before it comes out? Like, how many days do you guys test that product?
Well, I think that it's twofold. To start with the hunting question, I certainly, probably just like the rest of us, as you get more responsibilities between work and family, I don't spend the days I used to 10 years ago, but I love going, and I get to spend a fair bit. So, probably this year, I think, probably around the 25 days, out elk hunting. That was primarily what I did all year this year. And
because you have two little kids.
Yep.
So you have the family dynamics to work around. And
definitely.
You mentioned that when you talked about having a sat phone. And so that's always a factor.
It is. Yeah, that's a big factor. And then to your question on the testing, it really depends on the product, because there are some products that we come out with that I know just from experience that this is going to work just fine. So take, for example, when we come out with a new bag design, a lot of the features or the stress points and the things that normally you'd have to test longer are the same. We've been running them for 5 years, attachment points, webbing, those kinds of things. So now you're just dealing with pockets or zipper placement, or, is it functional in the field? So that takes a lot less time. Whereas, say, the X-Curve, that's an entirely new beast. It needed to go through its paces. And we started that. Well, I started it in the summer with my own, testing, just to make sure everything was comfortable, that had it where I wanted it to be, and then had a short run of packs that we sent out to different guys to test and give us feedback. Are there pressure points? Are there this? So we try to make sure that we cover all of our bases, especially with a high level product like the frame.
Right. That makes sense. Well, obviously stoneglacier.com, they can find you. Anywhere else you want to be found, Kurt?
That's probably the best place to catch us.
I agree. Now. Well, if there's two things I want to say I learned on this podcast that I know right off the top. Kurt tells me I can be short and fat and be a sheep hunter, and Kurt don't mess around when he goes sheep hunting. He uses a 378. So anyways, Kurt, we really appreciate you coming on. We know that you're a quiet guy. It's not your cup of tea to get out here in the public. We really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Kurt.